The Fed15 podcast is presented by Serving Those Who Serve, a financial planning practice serving federal government employees and retirees all over the country. This podcast is for informational purposes only and is not intended to be taken as financial advice. All listeners should consult their personal advisors before taking any action. The opinions expressed by our hosts are their own and do not reflect the views, policies, or position of either Raymond James or Serving Those Who Serve. Securities are offered through Raymond James Financial Services, Inc., member FINRA SIPC. Investment advisory services are offered through Raymond James Financial Services Advisors, Inc. Serving Those Who Serve is not a registered broker-dealer and is independent of Raymond James Financial Services, Inc.
Welcome back to the Fed15 podcast presented by you-know-who, Serving Those Who Serve. We're always here, folks. We are always here. And each week, we will discuss the latest news and info the feds need to know in 15 minutes-ish or less. So whether you are a seasoned federal employee or just starting out in your career, we have you covered. So grab your coffee, your energy drink, your green juice, whatever is your jam. Kick back and we will tell you what you need to know but might have missed. We are your hosts. I am Dan Sipe, and I am joined by the extraordinary and incomparable Katelyn.
Hello, everybody. I had a viewer point out hello from my new office. I had somebody point out actually that this is the room that I took time off to paint. So thank you for that piece of feedback. It is just in time to get into to upgrade the office digs, because I have been spending a lot of time in here this week.
You have indeed.
Yes.
Okay, folks, you need to understand. Okay. You need to understand who you have in Katelyn Murray. Okay. She's sending me Teams messages at 5 a.m. on something that came to her. She dreamed it on your behalf. Okay. And some of these articles that you're reading, we know you read them, 27,000 views in 2 days with all the information that you really want, you really need right now. That's her right there. Ding, 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 ding.
It's
so
true.
I'm embarrassing her and I'll pay for this later. But you need to know. Okay. Dan is just a happy idiot surrounded by amazing people.
Oh, hush, Dan Sipe. You know we're in it together. You know you dream about feds too.
I do indeed. I do indeed.
For sure.
So we've got, we've got some really good stuff for you here. Again, we know what's going on and it's tailoring everything we do, everything we think. So one of the things that we're going to be covering today, Katelyn's going to be talking about breaks in service and how that doesn't mean the end of a career by any stretch of the imagination. So we know what's going on. These are important tools for you to have. And then I'm going to pick it up with something that nobody's thinking about right now, and that's self-care. Okay, specifically how you can use your leave well during this challenging year to make sure that you're taking care of yourself, because that's who we are, and that's what we want to do for you. So Katelyn, kick us off and walk our folks through breaks in service and what that really means, and more importantly, what it doesn't mean.
Absolutely. So looking at breaks in service, obviously with everything that's going on with deferred resignation, et cetera, this is a very hot topic for our feds, along with deferred retirement, postponed retirement, VERA. You can find all of those things on STWServe.com. If you are looking for details there, feel free to hit up the website, just search in the search bar, and you'll have information at your fingertips. So covering specifically the topic of breaks in service today, I want to take just a moment to look at that. Taking a break from service does require some planning. As Dan mentioned, it is absolutely not necessarily the end of a career if you don't want it to be, but there are some keys to kind of think about if you are considering a break in service. So we've got kind of some best practices here. One big one is looking at your TSP. So with your TSP, you've got a couple different options if you're looking at a break in service. Now, of course, hopefully everybody knows at 59 and a half, you have the ability while still working to do an in-service rollover if you see fit, if that suits your financial context. Before age 59 and a half, if you're still working for the federal government, you don't really have mobility with your TSP. Okay. But after 59 and a half, you have that mobility. However, if you take a break in service, meaning you leave federal government service to come back or to not, you then have the option as an officially terminated employee to have that TSP mobility. So there's a couple different options. You can leave the money where it's at and it'll sit where it's at. The pros there, low fees in the TSP, not the lowest cost option though, to be clear. We have a lot of no fee funds at custodians like Fidelity is one that are actually cheaper than the TSP. But when it comes to your investment portfolio, cheaper does not always mean better, folks. So you need to think about things like breadth and depth of fund options. You need to think about things like management, investment strategy, and who's sort of looking out for that in the portfolio. So you can leave the money there. You can roll it over to an IRA or a Roth IRA. Pre-tax funds in the TSP will to IRAs. Roth funds in the TSP will to Roth IRAs. If done correctly, there is no taxable event with a rollover. Benefits there are more fund options, and cons there are if you're working with an investment manager, you may have higher fees. You know, the TSP likes to keep fees pretty low for participants. Again, not the lowest, but pretty low. And then the last option is, and this kind of goes into our next best practice point, you could roll the money into a 401k at your new employer, provided that you're interested in looking at private sector work and kind of use that as seed money for your new employer 401k. The concern there is that we're going from a TSP with somewhat limited investment options into a 401k that may have limited investment options or may not. 401k investment options are really guided by how much the company administering the 401k wants to spend there. So if you go with a company that's really using that 401k as a recruitment tool to retain and recruit talent, then you could have some great options. You could also have some not so great options. So definitely something to look at. Our number 2 best practice here, you want to make sure that you are building a file of your employment record. So before you leave, you want to make sure that you download your personnel file. I recommend keeping a digital copy and a physical copy of your personnel file. This is going to be things like performance reviews. It's going to be things like pay stubs. It's really important that you document that, because if you come back to the federal government, sometimes things can get a little hairy with service computation dates.
We see it.
If you come back to the federal government and you're retiring with a FERS pension, that's definitely going to be, something you want to have a record of how many years of service you have that is very, very reliable.
And so Katelyn's being modest here. There's a great article on the site right now, real time, where she's giving you the how-tos on
for sure
getting that. So great job on that, Katelyn, getting that up. Hit the site. You'll see it right up front. Sorry, go ahead.
Absolutely. Yeah, no, definitely recommend that every Fed download their personnel file today if you can. Another big thing is keep saving for retirement. So if you take a break from the federal government, you can't save to the TSP anymore. It's all good. If you take a private sector position, try to prioritize a private sector position that's going to give you access to a 401k, ideally a 401k that offers an employer match. So as you're negotiating for your new position, make sure that we're thinking about things like continuing on retirement savings. And then I've saved the best for last. If you haven't heard a single thing that I've said up until this point, tune in, okay? My folks who have me on in the background while they're cleaning or driving, tune in. Now's the time. If you are considering a break in service from the federal government, do not cash out or refund your FERS balance. Why? Because life is long and things happen, and you could end up going back into the federal government, and you could preserve that FERS pension and not have to start over from ground zero. What that means is being able to have an ongoing pension stream, inflation-adjusted stream of income in retirement, but it also means keeping FEHB, because FEHB is paid from your FERS pension payment. So think twice. If you want to move the TSP to be less reliant on the federal government, I totally get it. That's an option, potentially, for you, if it makes sense. But the FERS balance, serving those who serve's opinion on that is leave that where that's at. Obviously, before you're making any financial planning moves, you're going to want to speak to your qualified advisor. If you don't have one, hit us up at STWServe.com. You can email us at meetings@STWServe.com, and we will be happy to have a conversation with you. Now, that's breaks in service, which is a little bit more of a permanent-ish, could be, break, but Dana is going to talk to us about a different type of break. And I really think, we had a conversation before we got started today about this particular article. It was a piece of content that we had planned ahead of all of the different developments, that we've seen in the past couple of weeks with the federal government, deferred resignation, all of those really heavy topics. But I actually am glad that it was sort of worked into our cadence, because I think it highlights a really important piece of the conversation that maybe many of us aren't having right now. So Dan, talk to us about this article, talk to us about some self-care and kind of what we should be looking at there.
Absolutely. This is probably, I've been doing this 40 years. This is one of the most stressful times. I was here for Reagan. I was here for National Performance Review back with Clinton Gore. So these types of things happen, and whatever's happening right now is always the worst. Just understand that. But the people remain the same. So one of the things, and again, kudos to Katelyn, who crunched out all the cool math on this, feds actually get a fair number of federal holidays during the course of the year. Running through the list very quickly, we've got January 1st, Martin Luther King Day, President's Day, Memorial Day, Juneteenth, Independence Day, Columbus Day, Veterans Day, Thanksgiving, Christmas Day, etc. So the last thing somebody who is stressed about whether they're going to be considered expendable, which I don't believe any feds ever are, but I know those are the words people are using right now, is you don't want to be taking time off. Well, you're going to have those holidays anyway. What if you just added a day, second day to them? And that's what Katelyn brilliantly crafts as strategic long weekend planning. So those federal holidays offer great opportunities for those longer weekends by just using one or two PTO days. So now you've got that multi-day break. So if holiday falls on a Friday, grab a Thursday or a Monday, 4 days, you've got it. And I know you're sitting there going, Dan, we can do math. Yes, you can, but we're kind of nudging you to not forget to do that. And also block your vacations around a holiday cluster. So for example, and I know it's astonishing that somebody could tolerate my presence for 40 consecutive years, but Miss Mary and I will be celebrating our 40th wedding anniversary. And it so happens that it does align, our anniversary aligns around a holiday. So yes, the time that I'm taking off because I want to make sure I get to a 50th anniversary. So I'm going to make sure that we go to a nice place, someplace warm. And so I'm also taking advantage of the fact this coming Monday it's a federal holiday. So, so for example, Juneteenth, take Monday, June 16th, Wednesday, June 18th, Friday, June 20th. You can build around that. Thanksgiving, take Monday the 24th, Wednesday the 26th, Friday the 28th. Christmas, take Monday the 22nd, Wednesday the 24th, Friday the 26th. But here's the biggest part. Katelyn really hit this beautifully. Balance that around your workload too. Because if, let's say 10% of the workforce chooses to leave from this most recent offer, I'm thinking they're not going to run around and hire those. So there's going to be work being shifted around. It could be coming to you. So make sure that you're balancing your time off for self-care. The other thing is have a plan for it. Submit those requests early. Discuss it with your supervisor to make sure there's coverage. Be flexible because you need to understand, hopefully 1 million people are going to watch this. And so they'll all be going at the same time. So don't fight, be friends, don't fight, all on the same team. Even though it is not something that wants to be discussed right now, telework still exists. Okay, so consider leveraging that around that. But strategically planning your PTO is going to help you with your work-life balance, help you recharge when you need to, and above all, enhance your well-being during these challenging times. And if you've learned nothing from watching these things and reading the things that we write, okay, we care about you as feds. We also care about you as people. And we want to make sure that you're taking care of yourself while we're all getting through this together. Okay, we are on the clock with you. You're not going to find that we're not working on something for you any hour of the day during this time. We're going to be here. We're going to be here with this. We're going to be here with the webinars. We're going to be here with all of our content. So take care of yourselves and bookmark this page.
For sure. Couldn't have said it better myself, Dan. Well, that is all the time that we have for today, folks. We've just scurry back and continue to do more research to stay updated on the latest developments. I know that they're rolling in quickly. Dan's message is really important. You've got to pace yourself. So make sure that you are strategically scheduling in those breaks to take a deep breath. I know that in a time like this, the last thing that you want to do is take a moment for yourself, but you need to for that pacing. We are going to be back next week to bring you all the latest updates that you need to make informed decisions about your career and financial well-being as a Fed.
Absolutely. And now more so than ever, just subscribe to the podcast, okay, on YouTube and Spotify. So we're letting you know when something drops. You don't have to go looking for it, because we're going to cover stuff that matters right now. And please remember to share it with your friends and colleagues.
100%. I know there's a lot of conversations being had right now. There's a lot of folks who are concerned. We don't want any Fed making decisions out of fear. We want them making fully educated decisions based on, their own situation. So if you're having conversations with people who are concerned, take a moment to say, hey, I know of this really great resource. They put out a ton of free content for education for Feds, and share serving those who serve with them, because we really do. That content isn't behind a paywall for a reason. So share it with your friends and colleagues. We'd be happy to help them. Again, we don't want anybody making decisions out of fear. For more information on the topics covered in today's show and more, keep an eye trained to STWServe.com. I've said this before. I'll say it again. Set it as your homepage. That way you can see it when you need to and see the latest updates. They are coming faster and faster, it seems. Subscribe to our newsletter, The Weekly Serving, so that you can get all the latest news for Feds delivered straight to your inbox every week on Thursdays as well.
Absolutely. And don't forget our live webinars that we have running pretty much every single week. A couple of important ones coming up that we've already run them so far. And the Q&A is vital in these. Live Q&A. Get your questions answered. So we've got FEHB coming up on February 26th from 10:30 to 2:30 featuring Katelyn. And then it's going to be a double feature of Katelyn, because then on March the 4th, we've got from 11 till 3 our expanded FERS coverage. And that was magic this week. Yeah, there were a lot of anxious questions, but we stayed on and got them all covered. Now, if you are looking for something more personalized, you can absolutely hit us up. You can send us an email question at info@stwserve.com, or you can also reach out to us at meetings@stwserve.com and say, hey, I really need to sit down and talk with somebody. If you just have a question, that's fine. Are we a full service financial planning group? Absolutely. Do we have to talk about that in these times? No. If you just need help, if you need a question, if you need to get some clarification, feel free to reach out. That is why we are here.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much for taking time out of your day to listen to the Fed15. We know that time comes at a premium right now. I am Katelyn Murray.
And I'm Dan Sipe.
And we will see you next week.
That's guaranteed.